All right, welcome back, everyone. So we are removing the valve cover, so you can replace the valve cover gasket. There's 9 bolts that go around the valve cover, right? And it's the first time that I've seen them use uh, Phillips heads for bolts on here. Typically, it's 10 millimeter, but it's the first time that I've seen them use a Phillips. Like I said, there's 9 of them around the valve cover, and once you remove them, you might just need a little bit of prying, and then you can get the valve cover off. But as you can see, this is fairly dirty and grimy, right? There's a lot of sludge buildup here. So, as always, here at the shop, whenever we remove components, we throw them in the parts washer and get them cleaned. So this is a before picture of them. I'll get a picture as well. Like I said, there's 9 bolts that go around. You remove those, and then you can get access to the valve cover gasket. So while we wait for the other valve cover to get cleaned, this other side is a little bit more troublesome because there's a lot more connectors that you have to remove in order to get access to the valve cover itself. You remove these clips here, and you can remove any wires that you see fit that will help you get the valve cover off. For me, I found it easy to remove this entire harness, electrical connectors on this side here. I have them marked so that I know which connector goes to where, because it can get confusing after a while. Set that out of the way. I remove these from their little seated where they would sit on top of the valve cover gasket, and then so I can move them out of the way here. And then again, we just have to remove the bolts that are around the valve cover to get access to that. So we'll do that here shortly. And these bolts are not that tight, so you're not going to need any special like pry bar, or breaker bar, anything like that. You just locate the screws. And as you can see, I didn't even have to struggle. You just remove all of them, then set them aside. Now I understand why this valve cover was leaking. The fact that I didn't have to pry them to get them out of where it's seated from, because it's usually they get stuck, right? And you have to find a way to pry them up. This one was just super easy. It came off like nothing. Probably, like I mentioned, the reason why it was leaking. So I didn't have to remove anything else from here. To get this out, it just requires a little bit of movement back and forth, some finesse. And this side is a little bit more dirtier than the other side as far as sludge buildup. So like I mentioned, I'll take some pictures and then we'll document what this looks like afterwards. But as you can see, there's a lot of buildup from lack of oil change and maintenance. So we have something for that though. Good parts washer cleaning, and then a engine performance rebuild additive that we use from BG that we can document the before and after on this vehicle. So this one I had to do a little bit more cleaning around the valve cover, where the valve cover gasket sits on the engine, just because there was a lot more corrosion, or like a lot more buildup of oil. But like I said, this is due to lack of regular oil changes and maintenance on the vehicle, because this can be easily prevented. But yeah, just be careful when you're cleaning around the valve cover gasket. If you're going to use a blade or something, not to damage and create uneven surfaces, so that the gasket oil doesn't have a place to go in between the gasket and the top of the engine cover here. So yeah, just be careful when you're cleaning, and I will show you the after pictures for the other side. Like I mentioned, it's been cleaning, and then once it's there, we'll dry it off and then start installing everything back. So this is the old one. A piece of it broke off because it was so hard. So the gasket should be rubbery and flexible. This is definitely the opposite of that. Here we have a new valve cover gasket from Felpro. If you want to sponsor this video, Felpro, just reach out to me. But you can see the new gasket. It's nice and bendable, right? And that's how it should be. That's probably the reason why this vehicle had a pretty big oil leak running down the back of the engine, and can cause a lot of issues down the road. So I'll show you guys the before and after. Like I mentioned, this is one side, right? It's a lot cleaner. It's not the best, but it's better. And then to install it is just a reverse order of how we took it out. What I like to do is put a little bit of RTV on some of the corners. That way the valve cover gasket can sit on here and it doesn't fall as you try to put the new one back on. Otherwise, what could happen is it might come off or loose, and then it won't seat correctly, and then you're going to have a leak, and then you have to do this entire process all over again. Like I said, reverse order for installation. Something that I did not know until today, obviously we all have something to learn, right? There's these little notches here. I don't know if you can see that you can bend inwards, that will help put the hold the valve cover gasket while you're installing them. So I mean, the RTV trick works. Like I said, I did not know that this was the case on this vehicle, but you can bend that in slightly and it'll help keep the valve cover seated, so that when you go to install it, it doesn't fall off. So, and like I mentioned, it's just in reverse order. Careful not to hit your valve cover gasket on anything. As I mentioned, it could come loose, and it won't create a good seal on your surface. And then you just grab your screws, and you will be ready to go to start moving on to the next cover. And as always, not that you can over torque these, because if you are doing them by hand, unless your grip strength and hand strength are really a lot, you will not over tighten these, but the description will have the torque values for everything that we have done today, as I've mentioned before. So I'd like to get all of them started and then tighten them in a cross back and forth pattern so we can ensure the valve cover is seated properly. All right, we're gonna check on the other valve cover while it's in the parts washer, and we'll be right back. This is a better picture, or a better video of what I was talking about earlier. These are the notches that you can bend slightly, right? And it'll hold the valve cover gasket for you. So now we just put the cover on. There is only one way you can put this, so there's no way to kind of mess it up. It's me proof. Okay, and then you just bend these so that it grabs on to the valve cover. Make sure they're fully seated, right? Just pinch, pinch, pinch. And now your valve cover will stay in place. Move this out of the way again. But you might have also noticed, how clean we were able to get it. Not the best, but definitely better than when it came in. And I think that's what we are aiming for, is just to make things a little bit better than what they came in here for. All right, and we get our screws. Felpro, again, if you want to sponsor us going on in the future. Here at our shop, even before I started recording all the videos, we use nothing but Felpro because we've never had really an issue like we have with other brands of gasket makers. So Felpro is our brand of choice here at Gary's Auto. All right, and we are just putting back the screws, which, like I mentioned, it's the first time that I've ever seen Phillips heads for these valve cover bolts. Usually they're 10 millimeter nuts that are 10 millimeter bolts that are here. But, you know, like I said, it's the first time I've ever dealt with one of these. We did have an Xterra growing up, but if you ask my family members, I don't remember a lot. I think it's all the concussions I got when I was playing football, but that's neither here nor there. For example, my brother just reminded me the other day that, and I'm not trying to call you out or anything, Carlos, but he reminded me that there was one time where I don't know what I did because I don't remember, but apparently he broke a broomstick on the back of my head or on my back. And like I mentioned, I don't recall that. Maybe that's a good thing. I don't know. But like I said, we did have an Xterra growing up, but I didn't really work on it that much. It wasn't until later that I started working on cars more and more. Out of necessity, partly because I enjoyed it, and now here we are doing it for a living, or trying to do it for a living. Can't live off of no profit yet, so it's why I have a second job. That one pays the bills. This one hopefully one day pays the bills, and I am able to contribute to the community by offering giveaways for cars for individuals going to college, people that don't have money, that are trying to make a better life for themselves or their children and just need a little bit of help along the way. I was very fortunate to have hardworking parents that never once made it seem like we ever needed anything aside from they took care of everything that we could ever want, or need, and ever so often they would give us things that we didn't necessarily need but we wanted, and I'm very fortunate and happy for that. But one day it'll become a reality. And like I mentioned earlier, I don't think there's a way that you're going to be able to, if you're at least doing them by hand, to over torque them. If you do, then leave a comment and let me know your grip strength and what other workouts you do at the gym, because that's pretty impressive if you end up breaking one of these bolts. The torque specs will be in the video description. And I know I sound like a broken record, but it's a reminder for myself to include that. Otherwise, I'd forget. So you just put all the bolts back. Like I mentioned, you want to tighten them in a back and forth pattern to ensure the valve cover seats evenly and it spreads out evenly as well. And then hopefully it does not leak anymore, because this car needs to get out of here. It's a good thing I'm the one that runs the shop. I'm the boss, because I don't think my pace of working would keep me at a job for very long. I'm so used to doing biomed work where you kind of have to take your time and make sure things are right, because dealing with medical devices, you're dealing with people's lives sometimes, depending on the piece of equipment, so definitely taking my time there was one of the better attributes. Here, I mean, you do want to take your time in doing things, especially like if you're doing things with safety related. So for example, if you're doing some brakes, you want to take extra detail and caution. With everything, but a little bit more on certain jobs than others. And I hope the audio doesn't cut off, because like I mentioned, my microphone sometimes seems to just lose communication and it doesn't record. So my voice might be super quiet at times, and then at other times just right. So just be worried on adjusting your volumes if you're using headphones. Now we're moving on to the other side. The other thing too that I'm still trying to see how these videos will go are if I make separate videos detailing the different components that I'm removing, or just create one really long video for what I'm doing. It just depends on, I guess, what the people are willing to watch, right? Is it better to just create one super long video that details every single thing that I did for these valve covers? Because I know some people might not be replacing the valve covers, but they do need to remove the intake manifold. So I'm not sure. We'll see how the channel does in regards to views, and then we'll adjust accordingly to that. You're gonna need various size screwdrivers to get to some of these places. All right, and that is all of them. Because of my paranoia, I just end up checking all of the bolts one last time, even though I know I just tightened them all. But it's better to take these extra few seconds to check all of them, because if you find out that it's leaking, then you're not gonna have that much room with everything else on there, especially if you're gonna get these bolts in the back. There's no way, and you have to do the job all over again. Which, if you have time and you want to know or want to learn, I mean, that's fine, but not for me. Okay, that's that. All of the bolts from both sides are in. Now we're gonna start connecting all of our wires back. All right. The good thing about this is everything lines up more or less where it should be because of how these things are. All right, the hose goes there. The clamp. Yeah, these are connected. Don't mind me talking to myself. This is just so that I know where things go, and I'm just making sure. Okay. For these connectors. Oh, and if you're wondering, it hasn't been a long time in between videos. I just ended up shaving yesterday. And like I mentioned, anytime that you probably see me clean shaven is because I have or had military service, and you are not allowed to have beards. So just don't tell anybody. So think where most people and myself are going to struggle is trying to get these hose clamps or hoses and the clamps seated and tightened, because like I mentioned, I had to cut them in order to get the this intake manifold out. So we are going to see how we do, and if we can maybe create some shortcuts or quick ways to do it, so to help you guys out. um, one of the hose clamps fell. This is where a magnet definitely comes in handy. And I need something to hold that cable. I found these bungee straps to be extremely helpful, especially in situations where you need cables out of the way. It just frees up your hand. And allows you to do what you need to do. Facing up. We're gonna make sure everything clears on both sides. Connect your other PCV valve hose. Otherwise, you are gonna have trouble putting it back once everything is in the way. It's the same hose that you saw me put here, just on the other side. So what I'm trying to install now are those 3 hoses that I mentioned at the beginning of the video when trying to remove the intake manifold. There will be a picture and you will know what I'm referencing. But they were just a pain in the butt to get out. I could only imagine getting them back in is gonna be even harder. So some lubricant might help in getting these hoses to come back in. I'm just gonna drop in, not tighten, but just drop in some of these intake manifold bolts so that the intake isn't moving all over the place and the gasket gets pushed out of the way. Okay. Not to mention those connectors, right? There's 2 of them that you're gonna need to put back. There's one. Where's the other? There's 2. A hose on this side. Let's see how we can do it. All right. In order to get it in, it's best that you leave the intake manifold loose with none of the bolts in. That way you can maneuver it and you can lift it or move it so that you can position the hose and the little fitting so it can go straight down. It will help a lot if you have some sort of like lubricant silicone spray. It helped quite a bit in trying to get that in there as well. And like I mentioned earlier, there's 2 other connectors that we need to make sure we connect, 2 electrical ones. I got one of the hoses in there. I'll use tighten up the clamp here in a second. And then the other hose is this one right here that connects to the other side in the back of the intake manifold for the cooling of it. So I finally was able to get the hose right in here. Now I'm just gonna, I have to clamp it down. But man, was that a struggle trying to get that in there properly. And now tightening that is going to be another task in it within themselves. So now I can position the intake into position and then start a bolt or two.